agreeing to do this. We really appreciate it. I know it was kind of like short notice. Um, we just had like a couple of questions based on the release last week about the strategic plan. Just wanted to get a little bit more in depth on that, if that's possible. So we looked over it, and there was a lot of questions after it was released last week. Could you, Commissioner, just talk about the process by which went into creating this plan and who was all involved with it?
Sure. Sure. So, when we looked at the last time that we did a strategic and long range plan, that was back in 2007. And so, it was well overdue for us to do that. And so, in working with our council, who's very, very engaged in the conference and where we need to move, said that, it's time for us to do a strategic and long range plan. And we started the process before I became the commissioner. But we kind of held off until we knew exactly who was going to be at the helm of the conference. And then we went to work. And so Dr. Banks, who is the chair of the committee, led the work of the committee, which was made up of athletic directors, senior women administrators, coaches, a student athlete, other athletic administrators, so that we could get a kind of a real group effort, a shared vision on what the conference will look like within the next 5 years. So it's very important that you have that student athlete voice, very important that you have the coaches involved in how you see it from a non-revenue point of view and a revenue point of view. And so the committee did a very quick job, but a very thorough job of putting together the strategic plan beginning in January, and then submitting it for the presidents and chancellors for their review and approval, which was done earlier this month.
Okay. And Dr. Banks, kind of what factors did the committee explore to actually go into putting this whole plan together?
Thank you, Kendrick. As the chair of the committee, I was charged by both the commissioner and Dr. Lynn Thompson in conducting a SWOT analysis where we identified the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats associated with our conference operations. That's both internal and external. Back in November and December, we began all the discussions, began having meetings that were both primarily Zoom-based. And as Commissioner stated, we did reach out to all of the stakeholders associated with the conference. Upon doing so, we then analyzed those areas that involve student health and well-being, the vitality of the conference, the financial transparency of the conference, many of the operations that go into ensuring that we have a strong current Elite Eight with any opportunities for growth. And we provided somewhat of a footprint and a plan that aligned with the interests of all the stakeholders as well as the vision of the commissioner.
Okay. And reading over the plan that was released last week, there was a line in there that mentioned the committee, along with you, Commissioner, you did an assessment of the current state of the conference. What was the current assessment of the conference, and do you guys think, as a result, is it trending on the right track?
So that's a great question, Kendrick. When we looked at who we are today as the Elite Eight member institutions, we know that we still have great football. We know that we have great basketball and our other sports, Olympic sports that we have. So when we look at that, we look at how we need to tell that story so that not only that we know that America knows exactly who we are. I think that's one thing that we lacked, is that storytelling piece of the great things that our institutions are doing, not only athletically, but academically. And so when we look at that, we looked at the pieces where we might be weak at, as far as maybe improving our academic component with APR, and how that looks at the individual institutions and how that as a whole can help improve the conference of how we stand among the other Division I conferences, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, you mentioned at MEAC Media Day about your vision, and a part of that vision was telling the story of the conference, the athletes involved in it. There have been some other conferences who've leveraged some partnerships. ESPN is one of them. There's Black college platforms out there like HBCU Go and HBCU League Pass that are also doing some things like that. Is the MEAC heavily involved with that, or creating some partnerships with those entities?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's part of the strategic and long range plan, is looking at those opportunities to leverage our content on these national platforms, particularly in our Olympic sports. And so we did that recently. We're making history for our conference in broadcasting tennis championship, men's and women's, for the first time. So that's just a step into it. And that was done with HBCU Go. And so we intend to do more of that as we look at the partnerships that we're leveraging. So yes, we're going to be looking at various entities. ESPN has been a long-term great partner of ours, and they're involved in how we look at the various media partners out there to ensure that we're getting the best value for us as a conference.
In terms of value, how much of that value kind of rests on the financial aspects of that? I know like a lot of conferences sign contracts with ESPN and other networks, and they get a return financially from it. Is the MEAC getting a proper return, you think, from being associated with ESPN?
Yeah, I believe so. We are at this point, the inventory, all of our football is on ESPN, and having that platform, that marketing that we can't buy, and we get that from ESPN. And with the media partners that we're looking to get involved with, it's just going to expand that platform for our institutions. And we want to be able to do that in if I want to say a broader sense of ensuring that we can do the productions involving our students in that, and having that as more of a educational piece, along with that ability to tell our stories on a national platform.
Right. But you said like the dollars that you guys are getting from ESPN, that's kind of lines up with your vision too?
It lines up, yes. And so until we get into a new contract, when we start looking at having, more media at the table and kind of looking at that. But right now, ESPN understands the value of the MEAC and the value of HBCUs. And we've been on the ground up on ESPNU when it first started. And so they bought into the MEAC, and in turn, we buy into them, and they're great partners of ours.
Okay. Going back to the plan, this question could be for either one of you guys to answer. We looked over the plan, and it really didn't have a lot of specific goals attached to it. I don't know if that was by design or whatnot, but like, could you kind of maybe describe some specific goals you hope to achieve within the next 5 years through this plan?
Sure. You want to go ahead, Dr. Banks?
Well, I'll add some. I'll start a little, and Commissioner, you can complete it.
Sure.
What you saw released as identified in the media release was an executive summary. So that executive summary did not provide each of the specific goals and timelines that we are tracking. Some of the goals we've already began, and we actually have even met those goals. The conference and our participants really looked at areas of transparency. We want to make sure that each conference member institution is fully aware of the revenue distribution shares associated with the conference and those revenue streams that go into the revenue distribution share, everything from your academic revenue finances, as well as game and celebration bowl-like activity that is distributed throughout the conference. We had generous discussion about how as a conference, having only 8 members, actually the distribution has gone up for all the institutions because of the ability to share those funds. We also discussed meeting the goal of increased membership where it allows and where there is agreement between the mission of the institutions and the mission of our conference. We discussed opportunities for that to be greater service at the NCAA level for decision making and for activities where we're looking at what are conference rules, what are association-wide rules. Well, we have shared as well as enjoy a tremendous amount of participation at the national level from our current president, Dr. Javon Adams-Gastins, who serves on the board, to a whole host of our members, including myself, who have served on a multitude of committees. So we're on the ground when it comes to much of the legislation that's happening and being an active partner. So we said we're charging the conference to also identify those vacant opportunities so that we can ensure that we submit our staff, our personnel, our coaches, our administrators to support those activities for management of the association. We also asked in the specifics of our strategic plan, we have minimums that are set for both APR and GSR, and the minimum that is conference-wide, and then a minimum that each institution should seek to have, because as we know, all of our unique institutions have unique missions, and sometimes your mission may not allow you to reach the goals as fast as the next institution. But as long as we are on one accord on what the minimum standard is within the conference or any new institution that is seeking membership, that we know we're holding strong when it comes to how the conference looks in comparison to other conferences across the country in the same division level.
Yeah. So, with this, which is great about the way that the plan is actually like 24 pages.
Yeah.
So there's no way we're going to put 24 pages out there in the release. But basically, the committee looked at short-term goals and long-term goals and how we look to do that. And part of that is looking at various conference alliances that are going to help not only with the visibility of our institutions, but increasing the competition for our teams and how we would look in post championship season. And so, it's a very thoughtful look of where we're going and how that kind of aligns with what's going on with Division I transformation. Right. And so looking on the emphasis of student athlete welfare, looking at the minimums for staffing in compliance, academics, trainers, and that type of thing. And then revenue generation, for the members to be able to accomplish those things is very critical in how we're going to be able to together achieve the goals of the conference.
May I add one couple last items that shows you the type of leadership and vision that the conference has with Commissioner Stills. Our strategic plan even speaks to placing high values on the provision of mental health services to our student athletes and really digging into what are the services that are available to each institutions and where should we have some minimums and possible increases based on the ratio of student athletes to students. We also had an area that we felt was extremely important was to make sure that we placed a great value on the level and type of competitions. And one of the things as a conference you always want to do is have an APR and have a power ranking, that is competitive and that allows your teams as they advance into postseason play to actually have good rankings. And so we charge them to make sure that as you're conducting schedules, to look at the teams you play, the conferences you play, so that we can truly advance at much higher levels in postseason activities. And that's in not only just football and basketball, but the Olympic sports as well, because we maintain very strong position across the nation, particularly in women's bowling and in our track and field efforts as a conference.
Okay. You mentioned the report was 24 pages long. Why wasn't some of the goals from that report put on the first 2 pages that were released? And the second part of my question is, which of these goals you guys have listed can be accomplished within the next 3 to 5 years?
That's a good question. Well, one, we didn't want the release to be as expansive, because really it's an internal document for us to really get into and piece together. So we put out what we thought was the overall arching brushstrokes of what the strategic and long range plan is. And so for us internally, a part of this plan is usually sometimes you put this plan together and then you don't look at it again. And so it was very important for us to be able to, one, post the plan on our website, the executive summary of that on our website. But internally within the conference, be able to each spring be able to report on where we are within the strategic and long range plan. We got to be able to meet those benchmarks, and what's put in the plan has to be actionable. And so that's mainly what we're working towards.
Yeah, actionable and measurable, for sure. So you said 3 to 5 years. Wow, a great. I cannot think of any item that cannot be achieved in 3 to 5 years, because all of them have minimum standards that address, those short-term goals. But in speaking to one or two of them that, which is your original question, sure, we have goals where we're identifying the number of student athletes who have postseason activities that are celebratory in nature. As far as our championships are concerned, we'll have goals of expanding the number of teams that compete in a number of our championships. We have goals for increasing the number of students who serve on national committees and the number of faculty and staff who also participate at the national level. So we also have a goal that we identified and saying, where are we in participation in national conferences? Not only just the NCAA national conference, but regional rules, but professional development, professional training. And that's across the board, from our SACs, student athletes who participate on council, on up to our CEOs. And it was unanimously agreed upon by the CEOs when we made the announcement earlier last month.
Okay. There was mention also in the report that came out last week about sustainable growth for the MEAC. From the outside looking in, us in media, maybe people online or what have you, often will reference, well, how can the MEAC be sustaining growth when some schools have left the conference? You have a situation where the baseball teams left for the NEC. Do you see the MEAC as sustaining growth, and how can that be accomplished with the situations that have developed over the last couple of years?
Absolutely. We're sustainable right now as the Division I conference. We have 6 football playing institutions, which means we're still, sustainable as a Division I conference. So when we look at where we're going to be, when we talk about those comments about adding, additional institutions to the conference, first and foremost, you have to understand who we are as a 8-member institution, and where we want to go before you add on member institutions. You don't want to add on numbers. You want to add on quality institutions who are going to be there for the long haul. And so how do we look to strengthen the core foundation of the Elite Eight? And so that's the premise of the strategic and long range plan. And so when we look at who we are, then we can look at who is going to be the best fit for our conference. So yes, we are sustainable, but what we want to do is look at our institutions as they begin to add other sports. How can they add sports that are going to help continue strengthening the conference, so that we can bring back baseball? So we don't intend to have baseball at the NEC and men's and women's golf there for an extended amount of time. Our purpose is to bring back those sports as soon as possible back into the conference, as we look at member institutions who are getting ready to add those particular sports back.
Right. And so when the situation happens like it did with the MEAC baseball teams going to NEC, and then you had FAMU and Bethune-Cookman going to the SWAC, what does that, you think, due to the reputation of the MEAC? From the outside looking in, it kind of to me would signify there's some instability there, but you're saying this plan will kind of help with that. Do you kind of feel that way, that the perception is kind of right, that the MEAC isn't on solid ground?
No, the MEAC is on solid ground. I think it's the misconception, the misunderstanding of what it is to be a Division I conference, that you only need 6 football playing institutions to be a Division I football playing institution, a conference. We have that. So we're not weak. We're not ready to fold. We're strong. We're strong as the Elite Eight. And the misconceptions, the rumors out there is the only thing that's perpetuating that. Because otherwise, from our standpoint, we are a stable conference moving forward.
Yeah, Kendra, and may I add too, one of the things you heard each of the institutions as they all change across the landscape of the NCAA is they take into account the personal goals of their institutions. And some of the institutions that are no longer a part of the MEAC left, and their stated reason was they want to save on travel. And so those institutions prioritize travel and prioritize some of the efforts of competition for their reasons for leaving. You'll be able to see that. Being a member of a Division I program, it does include competition. It includes the number of teams, but it also includes your academic performance and how able you are able to access postseason play, participate in that, and how often you are able to receive the academic revenue distribution associated with meeting various academic goals. And as you do your homework, you'll see institutions where they fell short in doing so, and you'll see institutions that maybe have increased their position in leaving, but you'll probably see that there are a number of institutions that travel is a great reason to publicly announce your departure from the MEAC, but there's also some infrastructure efficiencies that need to be increased, and of course those things are revealing themselves as well. Okay.
And with the time we have left, when I ask you this question, either one of you can answer it. We know there's a lot of impatience out there, as you know, Commissioner, about the state of the MEAC and its progress. What's kind of the timetable for you as a conference to try to get close to back to the numbers you were before in terms of adding institutions or what have you?
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get back to the same number. I don't know if, based on where we want to be, I don't know if we want to be so big. Like Dr. Banks stated, the way revenue is shared amongst the members, you get more share of the pie with the smaller number of institutions in the pool. So we may not get but so big. I think when we look at expansion, we intend to do that within the next 2 to 3 years, but that's all going to depend on the right fit. And as we are committed as the Elite Eight, we're strong together as we are right now, but we will expand as we see fit, as long as it's going to be a good fit.
Okay. And my final question is, the Elite Eight has come up a lot in this conversation. You mentioned it in the past as to try to show strength and solidarity within the conference memberships. I know Howard earlier this year kind of said that they were going to stay in the MEAC after there were reports that they were thinking about going to the CAA. What kind of message do you want to send to not only the remaining members of the conference, but to the public of just how strong you think the MEAC is and can be in the future?
The MEAC is strong. The MEAC has not been weak at all. As you look at other conferences who go through realignment, you don't have the same comments that has been made about the MEAC. It's funny, when you get those individuals who start the cadence of the conference is gonna fold because this institution left or this institution left, and that's not the case. The MEAC is strong. The MEAC has always been strong. The MEAC has gone through realignment through its history and has remained over 50 years. And we will continue to go through realignment because that's just the nature of athletics. And that, looking at the landscape as it is now. So who knew with what's going on in the Power Five? It happens. Nobody is immune to that. But as we look at where we're going in the future together, when I talk about this strategic long-range plan from top to bottom, when you have the presidents, all 8 engaged and committed publicly to the sustainability and the growth of the conference, how can we not be a strong force? We are strong. People think we're not, but we are strong. We are a strong conference, and we will continue to move in that way. We are not moving as if we are weak, wounded, wolf out there in the woods. We are loud, we're proud, and we are moving forward as a elite Division I historically Black college and universities conference.
And may I add that we do also have some associate members who participate in some of our Olympic sports, who are persons external to the original founding members of the conference. And also extremely valuable that we understand that the MEAC, along with the SWAC, represent 2 of the AQs that are available where HBCU representation is guaranteed. And so one of the things I always tell my friends in the barbershop that we should always do is protect the opportunity for visibility for our conferences, because any loss of that AQ because of a loss of teams or a loss of that qualifying component, it impacts negatively the entire community. And we want to have as much representation. I look forward to seeing those other institutions that are HBCU serving institutions. I look forward to seeing them competing aggressively and competitively in the conferences that they're in, because I'd love to see a huge volume of HBCUs at every postseason activity and event, whether they are in the MEAC, the SWAC, or any other conference. So again, we are very strong as a group of 8. We have a number of things that are academically superior to many of the other institutions. When you look at the RPIs per sport for our institutions, you'll see that our conference is not at the absolute bottom of those rankings. And many of the institutions that are at the bottom of those rankings, that's who you kind of see saying the MEAC is weak. But, you're down looking up.
Yeah, but the perception is out there, though. I mean, just based on the developments over the last year or so, Do you think this plan you guys released gives people more confidence that the MEAC is heading in the right direction?
I think having this out publicly, I think it alludes to the fact that we do have a plan forward, and that we are committed to working towards growing the conference as a whole. So I think having something out there saying that we're moving, because I think, people are creating, what they think, we're doing or what we're not doing, and not really understanding that we're moving. Just, everybody doesn't know, the bottom out, like, I got to put my shoe on here. I got to put my, my pants on, all is that I'm dressed, the background of getting things done, but understanding that there is a plan, and it's a shared plan amongst the members that we're moving forward together.
And my last question for either one of you to answer is, how will you know the MEAC is heading in the right direction, that you see actual progress based on this plan you've laid out here for us?
Ask that question one more time, because maybe I understand exactly what you just said.
Yeah, well, how will you measure progress, and how will you know you're going in the right direction?
So that's part of the plan, having those measurable goals. And because we will be reporting to the membership each year as to where we are within the plan, because not only is it a conference plan, institutions are responsible for doing their part within the plan because of the pieces in it. And so you have to have that so-called report card each year to ensure that we're moving towards completion of the plan. And in addition to that, we're looking at legislation within our membership that needs to occur in order for this plan to move forward, certain pieces of the plan. So I believe that we will be able to accomplish this plan within the 5 years. If not 100%, of probably 90 to 95% of that plan. And the best part of it is, as the plan was being developed, there's some things that were included that we've already hit, which is which is great piece that we're all together moving forward.
And the goals and objectives, they're all measurable. So we have, as a component of the actual detailed plan, is a system of reporting that will take place at each of the annual meetings that we have, both in the winter and in the summer, where we have to report out on the status, who's responsible for those items, and what percentage has been completed. I'm positive that the plan and many of the components of the plan that speaks to strengthening the conference is being met and will be met, because we did have 100% support and acknowledgement from the CEOs, because the NCAA holds these university presidents accountable for the athletics on their campuses. And so they've all committed that the elements that we suggested and have moved forward, that they can reach them and they can realize those improvements on their campus. And you'll see that we're strong and we're competing in postseason activities when we continue to compete at the national level in a variety of sports, in a variety of platforms, and we're successful as a conference. So again, as a conference, we're still making waves. We're still beating folks. We're still competing with folks, and we still have persons who say, I want to be a part of that institution. Again, many of those relationships, they will come public and into fruition in the immediate future.
And then just one other thing, Kendrick, the plan can be a little bit fluid because of the way that Division I transformation, as they begin to come up with their concepts, that our plan may have to change based on that. And so, and we're okay with that. And so As we continue to hear the concepts that are coming out, then we look and see what needs to be tweaked as far as making sure that we're meeting those goals.
Okay. So in 2027, you guys will be in a better place than you are in 2022, you're saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're in a good place now, but we'll be in an even better place in 2027. You know, we're look, I want to make history, you know, and so these things that the members have put together, the committee has put together, we look forward to making additional history within the conference.
Well, Commissioner, Dr. Banks, thanks a lot for your time and information. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Kendrick.